Well, that's wonderful. Well, please take a few minutes here to share with us. We've got 8 or 9 minutes.
Great.
Share with us one of the 25 pieces from
They're
the
all
God
short
Dog
stories,
Connection.
which I've had other people say that's one of the things they like about it is they're short. But I've had a minister buy tons of them that he would take as he visited parishioners in the hospital.
Right,
because
sure.
it's a nice pickup put down.
I like it,
and so these are short. This is called A Paw for a Paw. At the present time, there are 2 cats living with me. Katie, the eldest, a long-haired female calico princess, and Sparky, her assistant. Sparky is a short-haired, black and white male, 5 years younger than Katie, and not terribly bright. From the day Sparky moved into the house, Katie has bossed him around and pretty much taken advantage of him. Sometimes she thinks he's mildly amusing, and sometimes she condescends to lick his head and wash his face. And if there is any perceived danger around, a stray cat, an aggressive dog, a bug with an attitude, Katie will leap to defend Sparky from that threat. But for the most part, she merely tolerates him as that new boy. Toward the beginning of the relationship, however, when Sparky was generally ignored by Katie, an incident occurred when Katie was accidentally stepped on by a human visitor. She let out a loud yowl that startled everyone, including Sparky, who came running to see what all the fuss was about. The offending visitor immediately bent down to apologize to Katie and to make sure no real harm had been done. Like the true lady she is, Katie accepted the apology with grace, rubbed up against the visitor's leg, then strolled over to where Sparky was innocently watching and beat the tar out of him. Poor Sparky could only blink and flinch and stagger backward in disbelief. Animal and human behavior experts alike call this misplaced aggression. And I'm sure this is part of what God meant in the Bible, where he talks about an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Just because someone hurts us, by accident or not, that doesn't give us the right to take out our anger and hurt and frustration on someone else. How many times do we experience pain in one part of our lives, only to inflict it onto others who have had no responsibility for that hurt? How often do we get our foot stepped on and then beat up someone unrelated to that injury? But bless Sparky's little heart, like the lesson taught by Jesus, he simply turned the other cheek and walked away. So that's an example of animal behavior.
Yes.
Faith lesson that I think we can draw from it.
That is wonderful. Share with viewers, if you don't mind, just a couple of the titles of some of the other parables that are in there. And is it okay to call them parables?
That's a very good word. That's a very good word.
Appropriate there, and you've got just a handful of the other ones, just to give them a sense of that. And why would I call it a parable?
Well, of course, in the Bible, Jesus used parables a lot.
Right.
Now, they're a little different in that he would use storytelling, and of course that was very common in the day. So many people didn't read, and there wasn't the written word as there is today. But that was a good way to impart information. He used them in that way, but there were also interpretations to them that he didn't necessarily unveil at that time. He told his disciples about them later. And mine are not near that complex or deep in meaning. They're just little, but they are storytelling to get a point across. I've had, this is not a children's book. The concepts are beyond that, but at the same time I've had people say that they use it a lot in maybe family devotionals, or they'll read a story a night to their child, and because it gives them something to talk about. And I think that's very important then for the adult to be talking to the child about it. I used to teach confirmation classes at various churches I've belonged to, and that's 6th grade, 12 years old usually. Sure. And that's a good age. They like this because they could really get into the animal behavior, and then they got this lesson slipped in there very painlessly. There's some that are... Don't Leave Home Without Me. That talks about separation anxiety with the animal and how we need to not get out of God's presence or we get uncomfortable the same way. Right. We might do all kinds of destructive behavior, just like a dog will when we're separated. A popular one is called Who's Poo. And Who's Poo? Yes, P-O-O, Poo.
Oh, yeah. Hearing you share that story yesterday, I think folks will have to tune in for that.
Customized Loving, which is an interpretation, again, my interpretation of the Beatitudes, of the meek shall inherit the earth, that sort of thing, and how I think how God loves us according to our needs, which to me is just, wow, that God would do that.
Right.
He would love you differently than he would love me because you need to be loved differently than I need to.
And for viewers who may not have a relationship with God, Can you feel him with you writing? I mean, was he a part of this, or I mean, is it just indicative of your entire life? He's a piece. He's with you, obviously.
I didn't. I've always been raised in the church,
Right.
but didn't go to church for about 30 years there as an adult, and then just had a casual conversation with someone who said that was going through a tough time in his life, and he just casually mentioned, "I've even gone back to church." And I thought, well, sounds like such a good idea. And so, again, I think that was God tapping me on the shoulder. And a lot of times they'll smack me up alongside the head. But without being real blatant about it. I don't hear voices.
Right.
I don't hear. And usually when I talk about the God-dog connection, I get a lot of that. People are like, oh,
the dog lady.
She's one of those ladies.
Yeah.
She has 27 cats at home,
Right,
and they're all
sure.
named Baby, and she dresses them up in little outfits, little matching outfits. Or, she stays at home Saturday night to drink cocoa and with the dog, and they braid each other's hair and everything. But I'm not quite that off-center with animals, but I do absolutely adore them. And they have always been a major part of my life. And then my faith has become a very major part of my life. And so I think, as I said, I enjoy my relationship with God because I think He has come to me, given me this wonderful thing to do, and to let me have a good time. I think that's one of the stories in here is that I think the 11th commandment is to have fun. To not take life so seriously that we can't just have some fun too. So.
You had highlighted that, I guess, a little earlier, just that aspect of it's not, I don't know exactly what it is, talking about some faith columnists, for instance, or otherwise, saying this is what it's about. But are there certain aspects from the Bible or otherwise that are just rock solid? I mean, there's not an 11th commandment, but that we can add a little bit to it. But there are 10 commandments. Are those rock solid?
Oh, absolutely. I
Right.
think it didn't mean to imply that the Bible wasn't rock solid. I think
right.
faith writers tend to say that my interpretation is
Right.
the only way that it can be
Okay.
interpreted.
Sure.
And I quarrel with that bit. And I hope I have not presented my concepts with the idea that they're anything but mine. I think that they might give you some insight
Great.
that you didn't have before, and maybe just a different way of looking at something. It's a little quirky, but it's based on principles that most Christian churches teach, and beyond the Christian faith. Some of it's just ethical living.
Oh, yeah. I think you shared yesterday, speaking of relationships, one of your best friends, 31 years, been instrumental in obviously taking the God-dog connection up to the next level. That's very exciting.
It has been my pleasure to work for Barry Doss, who is the president of the Design Group and the Design Group Press. And I've worked with him for 31 years. He just can't get rid of me. And he has become my very best friend, has been pretty much all of that time. And that's a joy to be able to work with someone that you respect so tremendously, has such integrity. And he is the one who finally said, you've sold 5,000 copies of this book, basically word of mouth, let's do something with it. It's obviously got a message that people are interested in. Yeah. And so is now available nationwide through nationally recognized
America's big retailers,
right, and a lot of smaller bookstores too. Aiken has been very good to me as far as the stores that carry it, and the Center for the Arts and so on, and Myrtle Beach, and Hallmark stores.
Wonderful.
So not all of them, but the individual ones that have the ability to buy as they want to will feature it as a gift, not so much as a book, but as a gift.
I bet, absolutely. And with Christmas coming up later this month, just a couple of weeks off, a great opportunity. Folks can go online, I think you said.
To thegoddogconnection.com. If they want to contact me that way and through email and let me know if they want it signed to someone, I'd be more than happy to do that.
Oh, great. If they did that, you could sign it for either a dog lover, a cat lover, or just a lover in general there. I think you mentioned yesterday you have a phone number as well, an 803 number.
Yes, it's 642 6744.
Okay.
That it functions for me personally as well as the design group. So we'd be happy to take any calls. 803-642-6744 and thegoddogconnection.com. Well, when you think about obviously being intrigued with biblical parables, you were yourself intrigued at some level to be able to recraft them, to work in new parables there for the God-Dog Connection. And just lessons that we can all use in our everyday life, I hope, and hopefully give us a different spin on some things that maybe we've heard all our lives,
Right.
that we maybe never looked at that way. Or I've had a lot of people come to me and say, you know, that's exactly what I thought. I just didn't know how to put it into words.
Right.
And so maybe that's been a help to be able to do that for them.
And folks like myself or others who don't have a dog or who are allergic to cats, can they still get something out of the
yes,
God-Dog
I
Connection?
certainly
Other
hope
than
so.
from what you just shared earlier, which was great. But
This book has been the centerpiece of several pet ministries, the development of pet ministries.
Right.
And one woman that I know of personally in a pet ministry that I helped start in Indiana could not own any animals because of where she lived, but she'd always loved them and grown up with them. She was in her 80s,
Right.
and she would belong to keep her connection with animals. We also had an 8-year-old in that same pet ministry, so
Oh, wow.
that's how widespread it was.
That's great.
And a mother and daughter, that she was a teenager, and they could not get along on anything, but they agreed on their love of animals, and so.
Any more that's special. And excuse me. One last thing, just that idea. Is there any more Marti Healy coming out? We heard about your column yesterday in the Aiken Standard, but any more books?
I have 2 companion pieces that are just ready to come out. One is how to use this book as a central part of a small group study.
Good. Yeah.
And then also how to use it, or how to start a pet ministry, whether you want to use this book or not. It's how to start a pet ministry. I have a novel called The Rhythm of Selby, which is based on my experiences of living in Aiken. I'm working with a photographer friend on some sculpture that she's done some photography on that's called Tender Stone.
Right.
And then I've put my columns together in a book called A Sense of Place.
Great.
They're all in the works, ready to go. It's just like just having a good time doing it.
That's wonderful. Marti, thanks so much for being with us this morning and coming back again
and
today.
once again, congratulations to you for a wonderful honor.
Thank you.
Week.
That's very sweet. Stay tuned to more Carolina People with the author of The God-Dog Connection, Marti Healy, coming up next. You heard her say it. What a great website, thegoddogconnection.com, thegoddogconnection.com. But for folks who don't have internet access, you can also pick up the phone, 803-642-6744, a gentle book that invites you to read one story, then another, then another. From beginning to end, you'll connect with the God-Dog Connection. Just look at this front cover. What a great, great cover. And, of course, you heard her share it. Pookie, no longer with us, but obviously the special connection there goes on for generation to generation as more folks pick up a copy of the book and connect with the God-Dog Connection. Marti Healy.